Okay, thank you and welcome to all of you that are here. I do apologize that I have had a busy few days, but I will always try and make sure that I meet you guys and record these sessions for you. There is sessions that I recorded for ISL and for family law during my absence. However, they seem to be big files because I didn't record them on Zoom. So I'm trying to see how I'm going to compress them and upload them for you online. Once that is done, you will all be notified. So last time we spoke about on the law of persons. If I am correct, we spoke about the legal subject, and we also spoke about coming into existence of the legal subject, which we said legal subjectivity begins at birth. I do recall that we spoke about that. And if you were not able to attend during that time, the session is available. It is on YouTube. The link has been shared with you guys on the WhatsApp group. So today we'll be talking about the termination of legal subjectivity, which is going to be a very interesting topic. Well, for me, I don't know for you guys, but it is a very interesting subject for me. So the topic says it all. It is the termination of legal subjectivity. So as it says termination, so it means that's when life ends, obviously. But before I dive into that, anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a bit. So now that we know that legal subjectivity begins at birth, now we have to deal with the end, the termination of legal subjectivity. So, in order to achieve this aim at the end of this session, you must be able to discuss death as the moment of termination of legal subjectivity and be able to discuss whether or not an order of presumption of death by a court does really terminate legal subjectivity. So in this session, the discussion will be on death as the moment at which legal subjectivity comes to an end. It could, however, happen that a person goes missing and that his or her spouse wants to remarry, or the person has want to claim the inheritance. So this is all part of this session. And then from that, we'll have to find out if indeed the legal subjectivity of that person is terminated. But fortunately, this legal position has been clarified in South African law. When the legal subjectivity is terminated in normal circumstances, it is by death. And I know everyone would be like, oh, this is very obvious. When a person dies, then obviously it's going to be at the end of everything. While that might be true, but then for legal purposes, there are different criteria that are used to determine whether or not a person is dead. And one of these, it has been like a major discussion, how a person can be declared legally dead, and legally, for legal purposes, we say a person is, their legal subjectivity is terminated when there is somatic death. Ladies and gentlemen, give me 1 second.
Appreciate such, but why have you come here? After so long, why suddenly? Prisha is not even here. She's in OT. OT? And I'll have to go to OT. One moment. Why do you want to go to OT? Wait, they'll be back in 2 days' time.
I do apologize about that. Godfrey, can I please mute yourself?
I have to go now, right now. You?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you. Okay, so we spoke about somatic death. So somatic death is at that moment which when the brain permanently stops to function. So what that means is that legally we say that a person is dead when the brain stops to function. So the somatic death occurs with the permanent cessation of the functions of the vital nerve centers, such as the brain stem, and the individual cease to exist as a functional whole. So this explanation that I just gave, it goes hand in hand with other body cells, such as the heart and the eyes. So the heart and the eyes can continue functioning even if a person is considered as dead in a manner which we call somatic death. So, however, these changes are irreversible, and according to the National Health Act, there are symptoms of somatic death, and then those symptoms are regarded as the ceasing of blood circulation, as well as respiration. And then another symptom, it's called corneal reflexes, which they say it comes with the result flaccidity of the muscles of eyes and enlarged pupils. So corneal reflexes, it's I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. That's an English word. So that that refers to the eyes. For example, let's say now a person has been regarded somatically dead, if there is such a word. So what happens, or the test that they use is with the eyes. So if you are alive, obviously, if I wave my hand in front of you back and forth, you will obviously blink. So what they check at that time is that the person will not be able to blink no matter what you wave in front of their eyes. So that is one of the requirements. And then the other one is called molecular death. Molecular death means that transplanting of organs which are necessary for the preservation of life in such circumstances will also be allowed as death. So that is when somebody is, let's say there is a certain transplant, I don't know, like a heart, maybe heart transplant or that, but this test has not been used. This test has not been used. However, there has been a case. I'll refer you to that case. You can just give me a second. Let me Let me have a look at it. The case is the case of State versus Williams. I will read the facts of this case. So the facts of this case were related to a charge murder. So the accused entered a home of the deceased with the intention of stealing from her. So what happens is that he entered her bedroom and shot her in the neck. So the deceased was breathing, and then she was admitted to a hospital. And then 2 days later, the doctors reported that the deceased showed no sign of brain activity and was, according to them, dead. So in other words, her brainstem had ceased functioning, and 2 days later, after a thorough neurological examination, the ventilator was disconnected, and 10 minutes later, she no longer registered her heart activity. So the question before the court was that whether disconnecting of the ventilator was the cause of the deceased's death, which if that was said to be the cause, then it meant that the doctors who disconnected the machines will then be held liable for the person dying. But then, okay, so there's a Latin word I'm going to share with you. It's called novus actus intervenis. So it mostly means that if it's a Latin term that is mostly used in criminal and civil procedure where there is okay, Mr. Wilbert, I will share the case citation with you. Please, if I didn't, please just remind me on the group. So this term is used mostly in criminal and civil procedures where there is effect of causation and liability. So it simply means that the person who disconnected the machines will be liable for the death of the deceased. However, the court did not express a view regarding the standard and the determination of the deceased death for legal purposes. While medical science does accept that a person is dead when somatic death has set in, the court found out that for legal purposes and legal reality, the court cannot solely depend on medical science. So the first court, the High Court that had this case, accepted that somatic death, it does bring an end to legal subjectivity. So what this meant in this particular case is that the deceased was already dead when the ventilator was disconnected. So so now we can test this by going back again into understanding again the meaning of somatic death. And then we said it occurs when the brain permanently ceases to function. So when we say when the brain permanently ceases to function, we still have the heart and the eyes that we said they can still function even at the time that the brain has ceased to function. So going back to this particular case, this lady went to hospital while she was still breathing, and then she was admitted into this hospital. And then, sorry. And then what happened was that it was the doctors that 2 days later decided that they will disconnect the ventilators. And then 10 minutes later, she no longer registered heart activity. So when the court said they accepted somatic death, that it does bring an end to legal subjectivity, and that when the doctors switched off the ventilator, the person was already dead, it means that the fact that the person was still breathing, or her eyes were still moving, or her heart was still beating, but the brain was dead, it gives us a clear indication that once a person is considered brain dead for legal purposes, then they have ceased to exist because it has irreversible consequences. I know that was long, but in simple terms, a natural person's legal subjectivity is terminated by his or her death. So does anyone have a question before I continue? Okay, we move on. Case citation. Okay, yes, I'll share that case citation. So so let's move on. So there is something that we're going to discuss now. It's called comoriantes. I think that is another Latin term. So in certain circumstances, it may be necessary to determine the sequence in which people died. So I'm going to give you a scenario. So let's say this test is usually it is usually done when there is something to benefit. Okay, when there is something to benefit. Let's say, for example, I have a will, and then I have 2 children, and then I am driving, and I am driving with, okay, I have children and all that, and I have people in my car, like two of my children are inside the car. And then, so in my will, I stated that my son A is the one that is going to benefit from my estate. And then I'm in a car accident, and then me and my son dies in that accident. So what means is that this test is going to be used for the purposes of the sharing my deceased estate. So now the person that was in the other car was my let's say was my daughter, for example, whom was to benefit from my estate, but in that estate, there's a certain sequence of, say, let's say I said, if I died, my son would inherit, and then if my son dies, then my daughter would then inherit from my son, but my daughter is not going to inherit direct from me. So because my daughter is still alive, what would then happen is that, because she is the one that wants to claim the estate, and say, for example, she's going to go now and say, okay, so my father is dead, but I cannot claim from his estate directly. I have to claim from my brother's estate because now they are both dead. So it's like it has to be passed from one person to another. So this test will be used to check as to who died first. So normally, I think that's according to common law, but we'll get to that. So whoever it is that is trying to benefit from the estate is the one that is supposed to prove that that I died, or I died first and then my son died second. Because if my son died first, it means that she is not going to directly inherit from my estate. But if I died first, then she will inherit through the brother, through her brother. I don't know if that makes sense. So, but because she is the one who is going to benefit from that, it means that she has to prove on a balance of probabilities that I died first and the brother died second. However, como rientes is a question of fact, and that in the event of the fact that there is no evidence to prove the contrary, the court will then make a decision and say, okay, since the other one was older and the other one was younger, so it means that the older person died first. Does that make sense? So the court will always use that test and say, the older person, there is a chance that the older person would have died first. So let's say now, for example, if she were to inherit from me direct, and tables had changed to the fact that my son is the one who had a will, saying that I should inherit, should I die, should he dies, then I'm the one who is going to inherit. And my daughter is inheriting from me, or is inheriting from the brother. It will be simultaneous. So the daughter has to prove, if she had to inherit from the brother, it means that she has to prove from a balance of probabilities that the brother might have died first, or I might have done first, but the court will always follow a formal route that says the adult or the older person might have died first. So then we will move on to the proof and consequences of the death of a legal subject. So the death of a natural person, of me and you, it has serious legal consequences. So these consequences, they set in as soon as it has been proved that a person is dead. Immediately that there is proof that I'm dead, then the legal consequences set in. So if any person can allege that I am dead, they must be able to prove this. And the death of a person can essentially be proved in two ways. Okay, so these two ways, they include direct evidence as well as a death certificate. Oh, just a second. Okay. So a death certificate, most of you guys will know what a death certificate is, but probably what you didn't know is that it's not, a death certificate is usually issued by a doctor or by a court. It's the one that you get from the Department of Home Affairs that is just a confirmation of the records that the person is indeed dead and then has been registered in the births and deaths register. But legally, a death certificate is issued by a doctor. It contains all the details relating to the identity of the deceased, the notes that include the cause of death, and certifies that the person is indeed dead. So the death certificate is called a prima facie proof, which means that it is the evidence at first glance of the death of the person that has been identified. It can also, if it can be proved that any of the details on the death certificate are wrong and the person is alive, then the death certificate should be corrected to say, okay, no, this person is not dead, and therefore all those things need to be corrected. So we spoke about the death certificate as one of the ways to prove that somebody is dead. And then we have also something called direct evidence. So direct evidence is when somebody says, oh, I saw Tabang's body. So Tabang is dead and I saw the body. So by the fact that that person saw the body, it is something that is admissible, especially in cases where a doctor cannot issue a death certificate. So in that case, then a high court can be approached to grant an order that the concerned person is dead because they saw the body, because there is a body that shows that this person is particularly dead. So that is direct evidence, and it has to be proven that the body of the person that has been seen, it is indeed the body of Tabang that they say that is dead. Hopefully I'm not going to die soon because I still want to live. Still have a lot of things to accomplish. So the following consequences that I'm going to name for you is the consequences of death set in by operation of law. So we said that there is consequences that will set in immediately. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There can be more, I do not know. So one of the consequences is that once a person is dead and they were married, their marriage will be dissolved. And then we will say their marriage has been dissolved by death. So that is number one. If you want to take note of that, one of the consequences is that the deceased marriage is dissolved. So if I were to die and I was married, but I'm not, the marriage will be dissolved by death. And then if I had any life policies, those policies will be paid out to the beneficiaries. So number two, the policies on the life of the deceased are paid out to beneficiaries. Number three, if I had any positions or wherever that I'm working, I will no longer have those positions because I'm dead. Obviously, I can't be working anymore. So those positions, I can no longer hold any positions of office. And then that was number three. And then number four, the deceased is no longer taxable. There is no way that I can be taxable. So when I'm dead, I'm not going to be paying tax. And then when I die as well, I think that is the fifth one. If I had any criminal actions against myself, these will be lapsed. So if I had any criminal proceedings or something going on against me, these will all fall off. And then the last one, private law actions for compensation, which were instituted by the deceased and which are still pending at the time of his or her death will lapse unless the stage of litis contestatio have been reached. Let me look up this terminology, litis contestatio. I have my Latin dictionary here. Litis contestatio, so that we know what it is before. Okay. Time when parties start the action. This is at the closing of proceedings. So litis contestatio is at the time that if there's any litigation, it should be at its closing stages. So if I had maybe some private law, like a civil lawsuit or something that were going on, this will lapse unless they were at the end where the proceedings DK, sorry, I want to ask, open that quickly. Sorry, but I want to ask, which book are you using? Okay, so I don't have the book that you guys are using. I am using the Introduction to the South African Law of Persons. So it's the 3rd edition. I can take a screenshot and send it to you. If you want to use that book, unfortunately, I don't have a PDF copy of that book. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we spoke about the consequences of death as certain by operation of law. Not too sure if you guys have any questions. It does look like we have 6 minutes left out of the 40 minutes. So as I said previously, if it does cut off, we will rejoin again just to finish off the part of the session that I had prepared for you guys. So the next topic, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about missing persons. So missing person issue is a very I'm lost on those consequences. Are they listed somewhere on the study guide? I'm not too sure if they're listed on the study guide, but on your study guide, there is a topic on the termination of legal subjectivity. So I'm not sure if those consequences are listed on the study guide. Do you want me to repeat them or do you want me to type them for you? Unfortunately, I have promised you guys that I'm going to make some slides. Oh, okay. Yeah, so you've been answered, Fifi. I cannot make some slides at this time because of time, but I will make some slides for you so that we all on the same page. So it does mean that if they're not listed on your study guide, it means that Stadio doesn't feel as though that these are serious issues that you need to worry yourself with. So for personal consumption or personal knowledge, you can take notes of them. Yes, I will type them down for you. Let me just put it on my diary. Consequences of death. Okay, I will do that. I think the best thing is that I will type it on the group, and then yeah, so that everybody can have access to it. So yeah, I will do that. So without wasting more time, let's talk about the missing persons, which I said that it can be a very difficult issue, especially when somebody just disappears and there is no evidence where that person is. One day in the morning, everyone wakes up in the morning and Tabang has disappeared from the face of the earth. He is nowhere to be seen. There is nobody to show that Tabang is dead. A death certificate cannot be issued, and nobody can testify that that missing person is indeed dead. So the problems that usually arise in the cases of missing persons is that I might have a will where I have listed to say, okay, when I die, my children will get this, my wife will get this, my father will get this, and then years would have gone by, days, months, years will go by, and then Tabang is nowhere to be seen. But there is this will that people want to know when you die, people want your money, people want everything from you. So that's where the problems usually arise. Or if like those people obviously are insisting that they want your inheritance. And also the fact that if I was married, my spouse would want to remarry. So those are usually the issues on missing persons cases. A lot of people would want to close that chapter for that person and be like, okay, hey, this person has R1 million. We want it. We want to get a fair share of ours because we do not think that Tabang is coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end this session because it looks like I have 1 minute. So I will end this session and then I will come back. You can use the same link to join. This is our struggle until at the time that I upgrade or use an alternative platform. I will see you back shortly.